Hi, I'm Erin with Quality Sewing and Vacuum, and I work in the Everett store. Today I'm going to show you how to use your Bernina sewing machine. We're just going to go over some basics. If you have any questions during this time, it's okay to pause or take notes. I am going to call out sometimes where you might want to pause or note something. So go ahead and let's get watching and going. First, we're going to thread this machine. You're going to go to the back of your machine and catch the metal hook that's back here. Come down, and you'll see as you go along, everything is actually very much numbered for you. It makes it really easy. The biggest thing that you're going to want to know is I like to put my hand back here and have my other hand here so that I can have a good grip on my thread. And when you're threading this upper tensioner, you're going to want to make sure that the thread is actually right here in this hook. And as you come down, you're going to catch the next tensioner. This is the part that most people seem to have a little trouble with this nice little threading assistant that's on this Bernina machine. I like to hold where the thread is in my fingers here, flip my hand over, use my pointer finger to put tension on the thread. Then my left hand is going to bring the threader halfway down. I'm going to make a loop over like a cursive L. Press all the way down until I feel the click. Bring my hand straight to the back, holding the thread loose, because what this is going to do is pull the thread and create a loop. Once it's created the loop, then I can pull my thread through and trim the excess. So that's how you thread this machine. The next thing we are going to cover is we're going to take our bobbin out. To take the bobbin out, I'm going to push on the button here, slide my table off, push the button on the bobbin case, pull my bobbin out. One thing to really note, that the metal of the bobbin is going to go to the metal in the bobbin case. This is how you put this in correctly. To wind the bobbin, you're going to take the metal side down, put it up here on your bobbin winder, and taking your thread, same thing, hold it with two hands, putting some firm pressure on it. You're going to catch the metal clip, come around the bobbin winder, I like to wind the thread around several times, and then there's this nice little cutter right here. The next portion that you're going to do is to engage your bobbin winder, just slide this guy in. And you'll notice that it has an automatic thing that's going to come up on your screen. It will stop when the machine is done winding the bobbin automatically for you. Today I'm just going to stop it short for just this demo. Back here on where we switched on the bobbin winder, there's actually a blade, so you just cut it. So easy. The next part, when you go to put your thread in through here, you want to make sure that you are bringing your thread up underneath the big metal piece here, through the loops, and then you should have nice tension here, but not a lot. I like to use my non-dominant hand to put this in, because if I use my right hand, there's too much strength in there because I'm a right-handed person. And the nice thing about these bobbin cases is they only go in one way. Cut the thread. You can put your table back on. And here is where you can take a moment to actually pause this video and go through and practice rethreading the machine so that you can come back to doing some stitching. Now that we've covered some basics of threading the machine and winding your bobbin, the next thing we're going to look at is actually what is on your screen. The biggest thing that I'm going to show you is where you really need to be looking. So we are looking at our stitch width and our stitch length here on the screen, which coordinates to our knobs over here. So if I wanted to take this straight stitch and go and make it longer, I'm going to use the bottom knob, and you can see here on the screen that it says 4.10. It is yellow, indicating that you have changed the stitch. If I were to come over here and hit clear, it would take it back to the standard setting. The other thing to note on this screen is that it will recommend for the stitch that you're using which foot you should be using. So here we're just using our number 1 foot, and you can see that on here that it says number 1. If we were to go to a different stitch, it would recommend a different foot. The next thing you have on your screen is going to be your foot pressure. Generally, I don't change this unless I see a need to do that. You have your needle type and your needle plate. And this right here, this one is really good. This is going to tell you on these big bobbins when you're getting low. In fact, it'll actually flash at you, kind of like a gauge in on the gas gauge. On your right side of your screen, still staying on this main side, these are your different stitch types. So you have your construction stitches, your specialty stitches, the alphabet, your buttonhole, your quilting, and this heart is where you can actually go in and take a stitch that you customized and saved it. So if you have a basting stitch length that you prefer, you could take your basting stitch, alter it to what you need to, and save it in this heart. What I like to do is, when I first got my machine, I put a little sticky note, and in my favorite section, I have different folders for different kinds of stitches. So I would put on there number 1, that was for quilting stitches. Number 2 was for construction stitches. And by the time I got familiar with it, I didn't need my sticky note anymore. Lastly, on this side, this far right side of the screen, you have your home screen. You have your clear button. And the last button I'm going to point out is a question mark. This is a fabulous button. What it does for you is it reminds you of what something is. So maybe you've gotten lost on an icon, or you're not sure what kind of stitch this is. You can hit the question mark, select a stitch, and it will tell you about what that stitch is, or whatever you pushed on to have them give you the answer. One of the benefits to this machine is that I don't have to use my foot control, so I can actually sew, and it's telling me, you didn't put your foot down. I'm not as smart as you think I was. So you go through here, you put your foot down, long press. It's going to do a calibrating stitch, and then it's going to go to work. I can hit the cut function. It will cut my thread for me, and I just need to lift my presser foot up. That's my basic straight stitch. Okay. Another stitch I'd like to show you on this machine is, I don't know about you, but I am short, so I like to find jeans that fit me in the waist and then hem them. I take my hem line and I usually fold it over 3 times, and I have a nice thick piece here. I'm gonna go to the number 6 stitch on this one. You'll see that it's darker than all the rest of your stitches. This is because this is a triple stitch. Select the triple stitch, and I like to lengthen it out to about 3.5. And as you can see, it's going back and forth 3 times over that stitch. Now you have a really nicely hemmed pair of jeans, and nobody will ever know that you actually altered them because of the triple stitch on here. Another common stitch that we like to use as sewers go along is putting on buttons. So if you go over here to your buttonhole, select whichever style of buttonhole you like, and before you get stitching, one secret is take a piece of stabilizer, tuck it in to where your buttonholes are going to go, and you only need just enough to take care of your buttonhole. And the reason for this is your needle is going to be going through this fabric so many times that it's going to distort it, but the stabilizer, which is the secret, actually helps keep that distortion away. So from here, you can see this is not a buttonhole foot. I'm going to take this off by just sliding the switch back, pulling the foot down, and removing it and setting it off to the side. So I'm going to take my foot off, leave it to the side, grab my buttonhole foot, which brings me to this lovely case. This is going to come with your machine. You're going to get several different feet in here: a hemming foot, a decorative stitch foot, an edge guide foot, a buttonhole foot, and of course, the general all-purpose foot that we started out with. Just like with any foot that you go to put on Bernina, it just slides on right to the cone. Flip the switch forward, and now your foot is attached. So from here, we're going to say that we want number 51, but I need to alter this. It's not wide enough for my button and it's not nearly long enough. In order to alter the stitch, I'm going to go into the I, which is in your Bernina book, it will say I for information. I like to think of this as I for editing. So the word editing is spelled with an I. That's my memory trick that I use to kind of remind myself where things are. And I'm going to go into here, which is going to take care of my stitch, the width for the buttonhole. What's a really cool feature is I can take my button, and in this case I'm going to use my finger as my button, and I can take it and go right here, put it on top of the screen, use my knobs over here to the side that we used earlier to adjust, and as long as the yellow is on the outside of your button, it's going to be the right size. So same thing, I'm going to do this again, but this time we're going to mess with the width. So I, and over here, and this is going to do your width. So you can see that this time the button is actually slid into the hole, and I'm going to make it wider. And as I go, you can see that it's being adjusted here. Put your foot down and let the machine do the work for you. Now it's expecting me to cut. It's already done all the hard work. Now I have a lovely buttonhole on this piece of fabric, and you can see that the stabilizer really helped make sure that the fabric didn't bunch at all. So if you're having bunching problems with the buttonholes, it's because you're not using stabilizer. From here, I'm going to take this buttonhole foot off, and we're going to demo just a few decorative stitches using a piece of stabilizer and regular cotton. Your number 20 is your applique foot. Most of the time, like I said, your machine's going to tell you what foot you need, but also Bernina has put out this really lovely book that is all of the feet that they offer for the different machines. And what's nice about this book, not only does it tell you what the feet do, there's also tips and techniques in this inside here. we're gonna go over to our decorative stitch icon and just select, let's do a satin stitch. A satin stitch is any stitch that is a short zigzag, either in a pattern of some sort or a straight line. So again, plain piece of cotton. The needle's going to be doing multiple stitches in a small space, so I'm going to put stabilizer behind it in order to create a beautiful stitch. As the machine goes along, you can see here that it tells you, because of the bouncing ball, where it is in the stitch. What's really nice, I can come in here, hit this button. It just found the end of that particular design and it stopped it for me, so I can have perfect ending every time. And here's one of our beautiful decorative stitches that's actually a satin stitch. I don't know if you've noticed the entire time here, but as we've been going through, there are folders. If I go from this folder and I want to go back to the main choice of all these decorative stitches, all I have to do is hit what Bernina calls them breadcrumbs. So just follow the trail. Here we've just selected a really nice simple stitch, and the same thing, we're just gonna stitch this out as to see what it actually really looks like in real life. The screen gives you a good representation of what it looks like, but it's always nice to see what these decorative stitches really look like. So same thing on this one, I'm going to hit this particular button called your pattern end button. At the end of this stitch, it will stop sewing, and then all I have to do is hit my cut function, and look at that other beautiful stitch that we have there. One thing I do recommend to people, if this is a new machine to you, you've never had a Bernina before, it's always nice to go through and create stitch cards. You can go through, use your scraps, and some scrap stabilizer, or pick up some stabilizer so that you have nice representations of what these different stitches look for without having to really audition on your project. The last thing that I'm going to show you in this particular demo is how to clean your machine and where to oil. You're going to remove your table. You're going to open up your bobbin case. Now, there's some things in here. To this side over here, there's actually a little clip that you're going to press on with your finger. It's going to lower everything. You can push your bobbin case out then. You're going to take the hook out. Now, you'll see that I'm going in with my 2 index fingers, and the reason for this is I can bend them opposite ways to pull this hook out, which makes it much easier for me. And in here, this is where you're going to oil this machine. There are 2 pads to either side of this particular spring that's in the center. You're going to put a small drop of oil. Now, I recommend doing this maybe every 20 hours of sew time, or there's a certain sound that I have akin this machine to. It's really smooth most of the time, but if it starts to sound like a tin can, and you know you've changed your needle within the last 8 hours of sewing, it's this guy. You need to oil it. It's trying to tell you it's dry. We're gonna put this in, but I wanna point something out. There are, on either side, 2 little metal tabs inside where we got the hook from. They coordinate with these guys. And the biggest thing people have a problem with, They'll put everything back together and then they'll get an error, 101 main motor mount overload. That means you haven't put this back in correctly. That's a big tip. So the biggest thing, just like I did before, I'm gonna put my index fingers in here. I'm gonna look like it's a clock and see where those metal pieces are and take this and this here to line it back up. So you want your little clock hands, just like if you were looking at a clock, to line up with the metal tabs inside. And once it's kind of in there, you'll feel like a magnetic pull, because there's actually a magnet in there that pulls it away from you and locks it in securely. Push this closed. Now you're ready to put your bobbin case back in. Remember, with your non-dominant hand, because you just want to push it in there just enough. The other way to clean your machine here is to take your foot off, push your needle plate to the side. And so the way you're going to do that, there's actually like, it kind of looks like a pond echo to one side of the needle plate. It's on the right side. You're going to push down. You're going to see that it tilts up. Pull this out. Take your brush that came with your machine in your little doll house. Come in here and brush this out. That's going to be just a general cleaning for your machine. It's really important on projects I have found, especially like denim projects. It's going to put a lot of dust into your machine, and you're going to want to make sure that you clean that up before you go on to the next project. Line up your needle plate again and pop it down. You should see that these two tabs over here are actually snug and should fit flush. Put your sewing foot back on. Put your table back on. And you're ready to go for your next project. I hope you learned a lot today. If you have any questions, please feel free to visit qualitysewing.com or call your local Puget Sound store. Any of our team members online or over the phone can help you. Thank you.